back. Chair recognizes Mr. Goldman for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, you'd think that the cartels were created 2 years ago. The cartels have been operating for decades and decades, and as someone who actually prosecuted cases relating to drug trafficking by international narcotics organizations, let's remember that this has been a pervasive problem for a long time. But Chief Modlin, I am very happy to hear you say that you and your excellent team has dramatically increased fentanyl apprehensions over the past couple years. It means that the increased funding and the new policies of the Biden administration are working on the ground. And in fact, isn't it true that one of the new policies is to impose sanctions on some of these dangerous cartels, which had not been done in the Trump administration? Is that right?
Thanks for the question, sir. So I am unaware of that particular policy, but certainly we greatly appreciate any help that we get on the border.
You know, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle clearly would like to go back to the immigration policies of the Trump administration. So I want to take a minute just to look at those. Chief Chavez, are you familiar with something called the El Paso Initiative?
I am not, sir.
Well, the El Paso Initiative was conducted from March to November of 2017, and it was a pilot program that operated in your sector, the Rio Grande Valley, that resulted in the separation of at least 280 families. Does that sound familiar to you?
Oh, yes, the El Paso Prosecution Initiative.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Thank you for clarifying. In fact, that's actually where I'm going with this, because what differed is the prosecution of immigrants who coming across the border. This was a pilot program that you were intimately familiar with, isn't that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And in fact, you didn't notify for quite a while your senior leadership of this pilot program. Is that correct?
Congressman, thank you for the question. But
no, it was just a simple question. I don't have a lot of time.
Well, it's pending litigation, so I can't really answer specific questions
Fair
related
enough.
to that.
So we've heard a lot about unaccompanied minors, who by definition of being unaccompanied minors, wouldn't you agree, crossed the border without any families, right?
In general, yes, unaccompanied minors cross the border without families.
And you're aware that under our immigration law, those detained by immigration enforcement must be released within 72 hours, right?
Must be, yes, sir.
Okay.
Correct.
And when individuals are detained or in immigration detention, they're kept together with their families, right?
We make every effort for individuals to stay together with their families unless an adult has a criminal history. That adult is processed separately by policy.
Immigration detention processing separately.
Correct.
Okay. But it is also true, right, that a violation of a criminal statute means that both an individual can be detained longer than 72 hours and that they cannot be detained with their family. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So let's talk about the child separation policy. Title 18 United States Code Section 1325 is a misdemeanor for improper entry into this country. And I can tell you I spent 10 years as a federal prosecutor. I had never even heard of this statute. But this was what was used, am I right, to make sure that parents were separated from their children, correct? The parents were charged with Section 1325?
Again, I cannot comment as there is pending litigation.
All right.
On
well,
the case.
I think we all know that is the case. And, you know, there have been, as you say, there's litigation going on. This was a cruel and inhumane policy that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle would like us to return to, the old antiquated immigration policy that separated children from their families. And Mr. Palmer earlier talked about having an organized process. And I agree, and you guys have mentioned this. Let's increase the number of immigration judges to process asylum claims so that we can move through the system faster. Let's increase the number of visas so that there is an organized process to welcome immigrants into this country. The Trump administration reduced the number of visas by 11 million. So, you know, let's have this organized process. And let's remember that for fiscal year 23, the Biden administration increased funding for you and other law enforcement agents at the border security by 17%, but the Republicans voted against it. I yield back.
Chair recognizes